had some comments under some of my videos recently about fear in magic and how this can impact on magic. And I thought that was a really good topic to reflect on. So I have done some reflections on it and I wanted to share those with you today. And as much as I think these can be applied to magic, I do feel they're also applicable to mundane or everyday life as well. What I wanted to start off by saying, which I think is really important to say, is that fear isn't all bad. If you think about how we have survived as a species, we would not be here today if we didn't have fear. If we didn't fear crossing a busy road, we would get flattened. If we didn't have some fear around maybe walking down a dark alley late at night on our own, who knows what would happen. So fear is not the enemy. Fear alerts us to danger or potentially dangerous situations. So therefore, we need to listen to it. And I know for some people, fear can get to the point where it is really paralyzing and it stops us from doing what we want to do in life. And I think that, that's something very valid that we need to think about. But also I think it's trying to listen to fear and what it's trying to tell us. I was thinking about the sort of types of fear that come up when it comes to magic specifically. The most obvious one, I guess, is the fear of magic not working. What happens if our magic just falls flat on its face? I guess the worst thing is that it falls flat on its face, it doesn't work, nothing happens. And I guess that fear of it not working might stop us from even trying the magic in the first place, which is a real shame because I guess the thing is that it might work. This sounds very counterproductive, what I'm going to say, but I say this from a position of that it's helped me. It's not necessarily a comfortable thing to do, but it has helped me. And also, you may or may not know, I'm a psychologist as my profession. This is something I speak to my clients about, and it is sitting with fear. And when I say sitting with fear, I mean allow fear to be there, because when fear comes up, it's not a comfortable thing to feel. Understandably, we want to avoid it, but what I've noticed is that when I sit with the fear, when I allow it to be there and I notice where it sort of hangs around in my body and what exactly it is that I'm fearful of, it's never as bad as I think it will be. The experience of it is never as bad. And when I allow it to be there, it seems to settle. When we experience the fear of magic not working, when that fear is coming up, maybe just take a bit of time to observe that fear. Trying not to get caught up in it as such. Observing where it sits in your body and thinking about, okay, well, what is this fear trying to tell me about the magic not working? What would it mean to me if the magic didn't work? The idea is, I suppose, to get a deeper sense of what the fear is really telling you. Is it, if the magic doesn't work, you're fearful of what that says about you as a magical practitioner? Are you going to think you're a failure and therefore that you're a failure generally as a person? Is there a fear that if the magic doesn't work, something bad is going to happen? Like you're going to set off some sort of reaction that is going to spiral and something really untoward is going to happen? And don't worry, because I'm going to go into in a bit later in this video about how we can manage these fears, what we can do about them. I suppose depending on what the reason is, the underlying fear, the deeper fear, is how you can deal with it. The other type of fear is fear that the magic will work, fearing success, which sounds like a really odd thing, I guess, but I've been fearful of success. I've been worried, well, what if this thing does actually work? What does that mean? Because I guess we can fantasize about magic working and the end result, but we cannot entirely predict what the other consequences might be of that magic working. And again, the fear of magic working and succeeding can stop us trying. Maybe we will hold back and put off doing a magical working because we do worry about the consequences. Or maybe we knowingly or unknowingly sabotage our magic because we're worried about it working. So I'm going to go into some ways of how we can deal with fear. And the first one is, it's a very practical approach to it. Once you've kind of gotten an idea of the deeper reasoning for your fear, what can you practically do about it? If I was worried about magic going wrong and having serious consequences, use that fear to drive you to doing some practical things. So how can you best prepare for the magical working? What are the things that you need? What scripts are you going to need for this magical working? Have you got all the right materia, all the right paraphernalia, the ingredients, whatever it is, the correspondences? Have you got all of those lined up as best you can? And I guess we come back to the letting go of the outcome, because all you can do is the things that you're in control of. If you are following everything to a T, I'm guessing there's not much else you can do at that point. All you can do is what is in front of you, and then you've just got to let go and see what happens. If you're prepared as much as you are, and the fear is still there of this thing going absolutely off the rails and there being huge consequences, then maybe you shouldn't do it. Maybe that fear is telling you something about stepping back and delaying doing this thing, maybe until such time as you feel better. But I'm also going to talk about doing the thing even though you feel the fear. So practically think about, well, what are the things I can do? Allow that fear to drive you to prepare as much as possible for your magical working, and see if that helps you to feel a bit better. If you still feel a bit anxious because you're a bit, worried about getting things wrong, I think that's normal. I feel a bit nervous whenever I do a magical working I've not done before, because I think it's nerves and excitement. It's wanting to get it right, wanting it to work, but that's all part of it. But I think if there's a fear there that's really taking over and affecting you to a detrimental level, might suggest there's something else going on inside. Like, listen to that fear. Don't just dive into the magical working if you are really fearful. It might be that it's not the right time to do that. That's kind of practicality, I guess, but these are ways that you can manage fear. And I suppose in the past I've thought about how we can let go of fear, but I think actually the phrase letting go isn't necessarily a helpful approach to fear, because letting go implies that we're ridding ourselves entirely of fear. But like I said earlier, we need fear. It alerts us to things we need to know. I don't think we should be aiming to get rid of it, but what else then can we do besides listening to it that is going to help us when it comes to fear in magic? I suppose I would encompass this in the phrase, change your relationship to fear. It's listening to fear. Don't see it as your enemy. Fear is there to protect you. Often, if fear is at a certain level, it can end up paralyzing us, so it's not helpful. But ultimately, fear is there to protect us to some degree. So what we need to do is change our relationship to it and try to understand it. So the first method to helping change our relationship to fear, I'm sure there are going to be people that roll their eyes at this and go, oh, that again. And it is to practice meditation. Now, I would argue that if you want to develop your magical practice, you need to be meditating anyway. Meditating is such a useful and powerful practice to be doing alongside your magic, because I think the practice of meditating and bringing your attention back onto the present moment, that's a really important skill in magic. What you don't want to be doing in the middle of a magical working is losing your focus and your mind wandering off elsewhere. And that's part of the practice of meditation, because if you meditate, your mind will wander. That is an absolute guarantee. But the practice of meditation is that bringing your mind back onto the present moment over and over and over again. And that's how you get better at focusing yourself. The reason meditation is going to help you when it comes to fear or any kind of difficult emotion, I guess, is that when you become fearful, often what happens to your thought process, it will spiral into the worst case scenario. That's what it does with me anyway. The more you practice meditation, you'll get better at bringing your mind back onto the present moment so that fear doesn't take over. I guess then meditation can help you just be a bit more observing of the fear and just a bit more curious about it. Or why is fear showing up about this? What's it trying to tell me? The next practice that I think is also useful with magic is developing a grounding and centering practice. And that might be through deep breathing. And again, I think some people roll their eyes, but deep breathing and slow control breathing is what activates your parasympathetic nervous system. So the sympathetic nervous system is the fight, flight or freeze mechanism that can really get in the way of us being able to think clearly. But when we do deep breaths, that kind of turns down the sympathetic nervous system, switches on the parasympathetic nervous system, which alerts our brain and our body that we're safe, we're okay. The mind can come out of that tunnel vision and survival mode and can start to open up the other areas of the brain which help us to think more clearly. The next one is what I've called befriend fear. What is your fear alerting you to? Fear is not here to harm you. It's our internal alert system. And like I say, when we become hypervigilant, maybe because we've experienced trauma, that's where fear can be unhelpful. And you might be thinking, well, my fear does feel really counterproductive. Maybe it is really getting in the way. And it might be that you want to seek out some sort of therapeutic support for that. But I think just reframing our view of fear can be a helpful start, because we start to see it less as an enemy and more as something that's here to help us. And if we listen to it, it might give us clues about what we need to know. This next one is, I suppose, assuming that you have done all you can to kind of prep for your magical working and you're still feeling a bit nervous, but it's not fear that's paralyzing you. Maybe it's a quote unquote healthy level of fear. This next tip, if you like, is don't wait for fear to pass before you do the magic. One of the biggest mistakes I think we make, and that I've made, is thinking I'll just wait until I feel ready or confident and then I'll do the magical working. If I just read a few more books or watch a few more YouTube videos and I feel more confident, then I'll do it. But the thing is, you're probably never going to feel fully ready, and that's okay. If you've done all you can to prepare for it, go for it. Unless, of course, you're really, really sort of feeling, I'm really worried about this, I'm not sure about the consequences, then don't do it. I think a lot of this is down to gut as well. You've really got to listen to whether it feels right. But if you're feeling a bit, nervous and a bit anxious about it, it's healthy. It's healthy to feel those things. It's normal, I think, to feel those things when you're doing something new, or when you're doing a new magical working. I feel that. But if I waited until I was ready and I was totally calm, I would never do any of the magic that I do. And there's a book that I read way back when I was like 19 years old. It was a long time ago. And you may or may not have heard of it, but it was called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And to be honest, when I was 19 and I read it, I don't think I realised how helpful that phrase is. But for me now, it's such a helpful mantra. It's a bit like if I have something to do at work that I'm a bit anxious about, like speaking in front of groups of people, I will still do it even though I'm fearful, because I know that what I'm doing is helpful. May not necessarily get rid of the fear totally, but that's not what we should be aiming for anyway. I know it might be preferable for us never to feel fear, but remember, we need fear. When we can push through the fear and do the thing that we're worried about doing, that can help build our confidence. And even if we muck up a bit, we can still learn what we can do differently next time. But like I say, if the fear is really paralyzing you, then that might be a signal to just stop and rethink. It may be that the magic isn't right to do at this point. Maybe you need to think about whether there are other skills that you need to develop, like the meditation practice and grounding and centering, that are going to help you manage that fear more effectively when it comes to doing your magic. Let me know the things that you do that have helped you to manage your fear so that it doesn't get in the way of you doing magic. Take good care, be well, and I'll speak to you soon.